Okay, so thank you
Okay.
for attending this Holistic Full Spectrum Doula or Holistic Reproductive Practitioner training info session, whether you're here live or watching the recording. I thank you for your interest. And if you have any questions, if you're here live, jump in anytime. This is intended to be interactive, and there's no silly questions. Anything that you're wondering about, I want to address it because somebody else may have the same question. However, you're also welcome to invite me to a one-on-one. I love to schedule a time with anyone who wants to chat one-on-one to speak about your specific concerns or questions as well. We can have a tea, set up a Zoom meeting or a phone call, and go over anything that was not clear, especially if you're watching the recording. So we're going to be talking about two different courses, but they're offered together. Okay, so you may be interested in one or the other, and I hope that this seminar kind of clarifies the difference between the two. So I'm going to refer to the Holistic Full Spectrum Doula course probably as the HFSD course moving forward, and the Holistic Reproductive Practitioner course as HRP. It's just easier to say that way. So I'm going to describe the difference between the two of them, but students enrolled in either of those courses will be doing their training together, even though there are some differences. The live online seminars will be together as one group. So it says this is more than a training. This is a sacred path of service, healing, and intuitive leadership. I think you're going to find that By the Moon is a bit unique. I think all schools are in their own way, but I want you to get a clear understanding of the things that make By the Moon special as you're making an informed choice about your career training path moving forward. So I want to give you a little bit of a story to start about the origins of By the Moon. So this is me in my reflexology practice with one of my clients postpartum. I'm doing reflexology in this picture, and she's obviously got her baby with her. I love that about reflexology sessions that the mother-baby dyad, they don't have to be separated for reflexology. So it's a nice way to be able to provide healing support and real quality self-care in that postpartum period when it's otherwise really hard because of having a new baby. But the origins of our program, it started with I was a reflexologist first. I started my reflexology training back in 2001. I was only 21 at the time. I knew in high school that I wanted to be a reflexologist. That blows my mind. I didn't know anybody back then that was a reflexologist. I had never had a session, but I found a book about reflexology and I fell in love. One of my biggest motivators, in addition to being very holistic minded and natural, I was kind of I liked camping and being in nature and things like that. I hadn't had a lot of experience with the medical system in my childhood. I kind of leaned more on the natural side of things in my personality. So there was that about reflexology, that it was a natural modality that helps the body to heal itself. I love that. But one of my big motivators was actually that I knew that I wanted that being a mom was a priority to me, not right away, but in my future, I knew I wanted to be a mom and that I wanted work that could. Sorry, I'm working from home and I have hounds. There's probably geese in my yard. I knew I wanted to have work that could provide income for my family while still having a fulfilling career. So I wanted that balance. My mom was the breadwinner in my family growing up, but she worked in a factory and she did rotating 12-hour shifts. And so I know that was really hard for her. So I wanted something that had more balance and was also more purposeful than she found her work. So that was kind of the beginning. I started as a reflexologist. My first fertility client actually found me. I didn't advertise myself as a fertility practitioner, but somebody knew that reflexology was specifically beneficial for people who were struggling to conceive. And so I had my first fertility client before I knew a lot about it. Um, and I fell in love. I fell in love with being intimately involved with such an emotionally charged journey. Infertility is, we've done studies that have shown that it is as stressful for people as cancer treatments. And people often do it alone in isolation. They don't often tell their friends and family the depth of their struggles. And so to be kind of included in that and to be able to hold space for people who are going through that, I found very purposeful, very fulfilling. And also seeing what reflexology could do for them was also amazing. Regulating periods, like bringing periods for people who weren't getting them so that they would ovulate, so they would increase their chances of conceiving, how they found it really reduced their stress. And so I started to have more and more clients like that, and they would tell me that I was a big part of why they got pregnant. So that was the beginning. That led into doula work. So I became a birth doula, and I didn't think that I would do a lot of births, but birth work definitely drew me in, and I fell in love with birth work as well. And so these kinds of things, they kind of came together organically. I think the last piece that I added was the Reiki. Reiki and doula were around the same time. And the reason I took Reiki training was because I struggled with depression from my teenage years on, and it was on and off journey. And Reiki was the thing that for me brought the light again. So when I felt like I was at like kind of the bottom of the pit of depression, if I would have a Reiki session, it made everything so much lighter, so much easier. It gave me that reconnection to myself that would motivate me to do the kinds of things that were really good for me to pull me out of my depression. And so I always went for Reiki sessions before I became a Reiki practitioner. I didn't think I'd become one, but it was actually my infertility work that motivated me to also become a Reiki practitioner and eventually a Reiki master, because there were things with some of my fertility clients that I knew reflexology couldn't fix. So, for example, like traumas, people who had previously lost a baby suddenly and unexpectedly would, I mean, it's not shocking that they would struggle to get pregnant again. And that's like an emotional block. Or somebody who had had a very traumatic birth where they felt at the time like maybe they wouldn't survive it. That is also something that, from my perspective, what I was seeing in my work could prevent somebody from getting pregnant again in the future. Because as much as like intellectually they know they want another baby, there's this thing in the way that's like actually preventing the pregnancy from happening because on a soul level, they don't know if they could survive another birth. So I needed that energy healing tool to help people with things like anxiety, depression, trauma, grief, and that. So it really made this what I was doing. I got all of these pieces individually, the reflexology, the Reiki, and the doula. Uh, and that's the way that I was practicing is a lot of my fertility clients would become doula clients. A lot of my doula clients were also receiving reflexology or also receiving Reiki. My doula school that I trained with, they actually asked me to be a doula trainer. And after a period of time, I became the lead doula trainer for that school. And while that was very fulfilling, I was teaching kind of mainstream conventional doula training, but that wasn't how I was practicing. And so I made the difficult decision to leave my teaching position with that school and create a curriculum that was more authentic to the way that I was working. So, By the Moon has that spiritual element. So, it's for those people who really connect with that idea that a birth trauma could prevent a conception, or that the loss of a baby could prevent conception, for example, or that birth trauma could be that a lot of healing could come from energy healing or ceremony and things like that. So we talk about very spiritual things in our program. It's very holistic, so always encompassing the body, mind, and spirit. So whether you're taking the reflexology and the Reiki courses with us, or if you're just doing the doula path, that spirituality is woven in, that holistic, that idea that like people aren't just physical bodies with hormones and cycles and things, but they're also their emotions and their spirit are also um, integral parts of like who they are and the kind of support they need. So very holistic minded program, a huge spiritual aspect, while also keeping all of that evidence-based, logical, um, scientific information in there as well. So this program is great for people who know they want to support people through the full reproductive journey. So as I said, my work actually started with fertility, and that's why my birth doula business has been as successful as it has because fertility clients often turn into doula clients. So I had more birth doula clients than the average doula, or I got them easier because I had so many people who sought me out for fertility first. The other thing that I think is really important that makes By the Moon's training special is it includes the loss training. Oftentimes people take a birth program and then they either don't take loss doula training or they have to take it separately and perhaps from a totally different school. But my belief is that all doulas should be prepared to provide support at loss because we don't know when that's going to happen, right? So I want to make sure that we produce doulas who feel really confident regardless of how the journey goes, whether it ends up being that home water birth or something else. We want doulas to feel like they know what they need to know. I think most of them do. I think when you do a birth doula program, the kinds of people that are drawn to this kind of work are really good at space holding with or without training. But to have the training that says, these are the things you need to know, and this is what it can be like, and here's a variety of different experiences that people have, it just gives that confidence so that people, when they're in their career as a doula, and and the journey takes a turn in a different direction, that they feel well prepared. So we're covering fertility, pregnancy and birth, postpartum, and loss support all in one program. So that's true for the Holistic Full Spectrum Doula program and the Holistic Reproductive Practitioner program. It's for people who crave meaningful work that aligns with your intuition and spiritual gifts. A lot of our students are leaving other careers when they embark on our training. And so maybe they were teachers or nurses or worked in finance and things like that. And that work might have served, my dogs are so naughty today. I apologize. That work might have served a purpose for a period of time, but it now feels less fulfilling. This is very meaningful work. People choose this work because they're brave. Like this isn't conventional work. It's entrepreneur work and it's unique. And so there's that taking a leap into something that feels like a calling, right? This isn't the kind of career that people get into because oh, I knew somebody who is this and it makes logical sense, or I think I can get rich easy doing that, or there's a lot of employment in that. This is very unique. This is almost always you're building your own business and creating your own market. And you're doing it because it fills your heart, but it can fill your heart and your bank account. So business is a huge part of our training. I love the business part as much as the reproductive part. So we're going to talk about that as well. It's for people who want to help others heal physically, emotionally, and energetically. You get a lot of satisfaction out of taking people's pain away or reducing their pain, whether that's physical or emotional, or you get a lot of satisfaction out of helping people create change in their health. So I don't only work with people who have reproductive health issues. I also work with people who have chronic pain. I work with people who are dealing with anxiety and insomnia. I have a regular client who I've seen for a long time now who's in addiction recovery. So she's been over 3 years now, clean and sober after 20 years of cocaine and alcohol abuse. But now she's doing her healing journey. So it has nothing to do, she's had a hysterectomy already. She's not having a baby, but she comes to me almost weekly for sessions because she's doing her own physical, emotional, and spiritual healing. And so this is actually can be as broad as you want it to be. It's very, very fulfilling. And it's for people who are tired of piecing together different trainings. That's not to say that you won't potentially take courses with other schools, or that you haven't already, but this really is a lot of programs in, or a lot of courses in one program. And so it can be a bit of a, and it's all integrated together very nicely. So there's a lot of flow there, but you still get a lot of different pieces from it. Any questions so far? Okay. So we're going to talk about the two different paths so that people can be really clear about what they want to sign up for. So what I want you to know is that the HRP course includes everything in the HFSD. So Holistic Full Spectrum Doula is for people who don't want to have a practice offering reflexology and Reiki, or they already have those modalities or something like that, and they don't want to add those too. So the Holistic Full Spectrum Doula course is specifically for people who want to focus on being a doula. Having said that, it does include the fertility, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and loss training. So what you're doing, if you're a doula, a By the Moon HFSD, then you're going to be supporting clients with information. So you're helping them navigate their natural and medical options. That's not just for birth, right? So that's also for fertility. So some of your clients will be trying to conceive naturally, and they might be working with you and also working with a naturopath or a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner or a reflexologist. So you want to be aware of who the other practitioners are in your community who can help your clients, but they could also be doing medical treatments like IUI or IVF or surrogacy. And so you're helping them navigate all of the options that are available to them so that they can make informed choices about how they want to move forward at this time on their fertility journey. We're providing emotional support. So riding the ups and downs with them. So in your visits with them, you're going to be talking about how they're doing, what's hard on their journey. They might be talking to you about the stresses of going to someone's baby shower, or their jealousy that they're feeling about a coworker who's pregnant and things like that, that they maybe don't have other places to go and talk about those hard things. So in addition to navigating the information, we're also talking about emotions. And so we do a lot of modeling in class, our live online seminars. We do a lot of modeling of space holding. And so if it's not something you've had a lot of experience with, you'll learn about what it looks like and sounds like to validate someone's experience, how to hold space for them. Our classes are very intimate and very deep. So we have small group sizes, but we really get to know each other, and that's why the live online seminars are such an important part of the program. And then physical support. So like comfort measures or positions for childbirth, but you're also talking about self-care techniques and things like that for fertility as well. So you learn about doing, teaching people how to do their own abdominal massage to help with healing of reproductive conditions. You could be talking about nutrition with them, or castor oil packs, and why the liver is such an important part of your hormonal balance and things like that. So lots of that physical, it's like body, mind, and spirit support at all stages of the reproductive journey. You might be offering consults in their homes. A lot of doulas don't need to pay the overhead of a clinic space. And so that keeping overhead down makes smart business sense. So doulas really have that advantage because you can go to your clients' homes, and that's really normal, and it's still very professional. But you could also be working in a setting with nurses, doctors, OBs, and midwives, or with other holistic and natural health practitioners in a clinical setting. So having an office space or providing like a mobile in-home kind of business are both options available. And then providing support for natural or medical conception, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and loss. So now that's the Holistic Full Spectrum Doula as a role. The course program, the steps are different for people who are doing the HFSD than the HRP, because the HRP has a lot more to it. So there's more manuals, more assignments, more steps and things like that. There's more exams. But so the steps are different. However, the live online seminar portion is almost the same. So I'm just going to switch screens here for a second. We'll come back to that slide in a moment. Okay, so I'm going to bring up the By the Moon page here. We're going to look at dates really quick so that you can see the difference in the dates. Okay, so this is the By the Moon page. Now, this is for the Holistic Reproductive Practitioner program specifically. However, I'm bringing up the dates because a lot of them are the same for the Holistic Full Spectrum Doulas. So these are the dates for our next group of HRP students. Our previous group just finished their last 2 days of their session. And so, yeah, we're starting a new group now. And the first day is July 12th. However, this is Reiki level 1. So HRP students will attend on July 12th, but HFSD students will not. So July 19th will be the first day for the doula students, but they're attending with HRP students. So these 2 dates in July, the 19th and 20th, it's a weekend in July, are everything related to fertility. So we're going to be talking about fertility conditions like endometriosis, PCOS, fibroids, adenomyosis, and things like that. So we'll be learning about the symptoms, how they present, but also some of the spiritual the energetic manifestations. For example, endometriosis, we'll talk about how it's the endometrial lining that normally grows on the inner uterine wall. But with endometriosis, it can grow in other places in the pelvic area or other places in the body. So it can grow on the colon or on the ovaries, and how that creates very painful periods for some people, or very heavy bleeding and things like that. So we'll be talking about the physiology. And then we'll also be talking about how one of the ways that endometriosis can manifest is in women who are workaholics. So it's kind of like a workaholic disease. And we can talk about why that is. So we'll talk about the feminine and the masculine, and what happens, what kinds of traumas or early life experiences might manifest that way, that we learn these things or do these things as survival, and then the body's speaking to us about the imbalances or the blocks, for example. So it's a really balanced kind of approach. And so both HFSD students and HRP students are going to get that. We'll be talking about the emotions that come with infertility, all kinds of everything fertility for 2 full days, body, mind, and spirit. And then September 27th is Reiki level 2. So that would be HRP students only. And then on October 4th and 5th, this would be the second weekend for both groups together. We will be talking about everything pregnancy and birth related. So how to do prenatal visits, what you do at a prenatal visit with your doula clients, the different pregnancy conditions that can occur. And actually for that one, so in our previous weekend, I teach about the fertility conditions. But for the second weekend, you as students will be teaching each other about the pregnancy conditions. So it's one of the assignments. So you will have examples from my presentations in the first weekend, and then you'll be doing your own research and creating presentations. And then I'll fill in information where there are, some gaps or some things to add. But that's where it gets really interactive as well. We'll be talking about complicated pregnancies, birth trauma, all of those kinds of things, doing births in different settings. And then the January 10th and 11th weekend is both groups together again, and it's everything postpartum and loss. In these weekends, we always have small groups with By the Moon. It's quite intentional that way. What I think a lot of our existing and past students have really appreciated about being a By the Moon student is feeling a significant part of our community. Um, I'm not the only trainer. I am the trainer for these programs, but I do have other trainers and teaching assistants that are part of the team. And they play different roles, like in the reflexology program, or teaching Reiki classes and doing marking for your assignments and things like that. What you'll come to find is that the trainers that are directly involved with your training like know you, and we want to know you. I really get to understand what your strengths are, what your blocks are, and things like that, so that I can support you in being as successful. It's Our training is not just about, memorizing what endometriosis is or learning how to hold space. Our training is really about your own growth and development and evolving into um, a confident practitioner that can be successful in entrepreneurship. And we all bring different strengths and things to the table. And when you are in a collaborative group like that, when you're part of a community, you get to kind of evolve together. You get to support each other. You get motivated by each other. You'll hear about what your peers are doing. Perhaps somebody's opened up a clinic space during the course while you're together, or had an amazing experience with a client, and you'll get to hear about that, and that's very exciting and inspiring. But the other piece is, as you're coming up to your own blocks, or they are, we get to process and release fears together. We get to learn how to like do hard things together. And so the live interactive is a really important part of the course. So we've actually made it mandatory. I don't want you to watch recordings of these. I want you to be there. We have a lot of recordings that you already have as part of your course where you're listening to me talk and show you different things. But these live online seminars are really about evolving and growing together. And so if there are dates that you can't attend, we do have workarounds for that. So we repeat this. Um, so for example, on some of these days, you may have students joining your group from the previous group because they had to miss 1 day or 2 days. And so they'll be popping in with a new group and having that experience with other people. So if you already know there are certain dates that you have to miss, you can attend that with the next group. And there'll be another group probably starting in October. And so their cycle will look similar to this. Every 3 months, they'll have another 2 days to attend. So if you miss the second weekend, then you would attend their second weekend. You can still attend the third with your own group. The doing fertility, pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and loss, that can happen out of order. The only one that can't happen out of order is for the HRP students. Reiki 1 has to happen before Reiki 2. Having said that, these aren't the only dates for Reiki training. So if we go to the Reiki training part of the By the Moon website, there are other dates here for online. And so we could also put you in with our Reiki master teacher, and you can do your Reiki training with another group. So there's a weekend course here. If you were just going to miss Reiki 1, then you could attend just March 15th if you wanted to, or you can do both dates with this group and then do the HRP dates with the HRP group. Hopefully that makes sense. There's always going to be options for making up classes. So whether it's dates here or something that we add later, we will work with people. But we definitely want you to prioritize trying to attend with your group so that this doesn't so you get your training done in a reasonable amount of time. Okay, I'm going to jump back to the slide. Okay. So we've talked about the HFSD. Now the HRP, obviously, what differentiates it is that you get everything in the doula group, but you're also getting the reflexology and the Reiki training. So what the HRPs are doing in practice that makes them different from people who are full spectrum doulas is they also have that reflexology and Reiki practice. You can do your reflexology and Reiki sessions mobile in clients' homes, or you can do it in a clinical setting, whether that's a treatment room in your own home or in a commercial space. I've done all three, so I'm always happy to teach about that. I've done mobile practice. I've had a treatment room in two different houses that I've lived in over the years, and I've rented a room in a clinical practice with other practitioners, and I've also run a clinical practice with other practitioners. So I've had the whole gamut of experience, and so that's going to come through in the training as well to help people navigate their options for that. You're not limited, as I said, you're not limited to only offering reflexology and Reiki for reproductive health issues. You're specialized in that, which sets you apart from other reflexologists and Reiki practitioners. You're going to have a lot more knowledge and confidence working with people who have infertility or who are going for IVF or who are doing surrogacy, who have had birth trauma. You're going to have all of that extra reproductive knowledge, but you also, these are full certifications. So if somebody's coming for Reiki who's, 77 years old and they've just lost their husband and they want a Reiki session, then you're fully equipped to be able to offer that. Or if it's somebody who's having reflexology because they have a sciatic nerve injury from work, then you'll be able to offer that. So the HRPs really definitely have an advantage in being able to have that multi-stream of income business, which makes it a lot easier to be successful. So you're providing support at all different stages of reproduction, but also any other stage of life, and yeah, offering reflexology and or Reiki in combination with doula support. That doesn't mean that I offered Reiki sessions to every doula client I've ever had, right? So when you are a body, mind, spirit kind of thinking doula, you can really meet spiritual clients where they're at. But you can also make yourself very conventional for people who aren't sort of spiritual, right? So I definitely have had doula clients over the years who are like, I definitely want an epidural. And, I'm obviously having a hospital birth and that's what I want. And they don't want any of the spiritual voodoo kind of stuff. I can be that for them, right? I can just be the one who provides information, helps them navigate their options with informed consent and bodily autonomy, while and provide emotional support without getting into, the incoming soul or the imprint of trauma and all of that kind of stuff with them. But you have the broadness or the depth to be able to meet all different kinds of clients where they're at. And regardless of which program you do, you get digital and print manuals. And it includes the exams and certificates for whatever modalities you're certifying in. So Holistic Full Spectrum Doulas will get a certificate for that. The HRP students are going to get the HFSD certificate, as well as the reflexology certificate that includes fertility and maternity reflexology. They're also going to get a Reiki 1 and 2 certificate that includes fertility and maternity Reiki and an HRP certificate. So there's 4 certificates for HRP students. So you get the professional certificate for each of the modalities that you certify in. Can I build a business with this? I think this is a really important thing that we need to talk about, because as much as people are called to this kind of training because they're like, oh, I would love to be there for somebody's birth, or I would love to help somebody with infertility or somebody who's experiencing a miscarriage. Really, the only way you're going to be successful at helping lots of people is by making lots of money, because unless you're already independently wealthy and this is just a hobby for you, which I've not had those students, you need to be able to pay your bills. And I am equally as passionate about business as I am about fertility, birth, postpartum, and all of that. So your training includes a whole business course. And I love teaching about business, and I think that really comes through. I love teaching you about marketing. I love teaching you the technology stuff. So We have videos where I walk you through building your own basic websites. You don't have to pay $5,000 to have somebody else build it, and then you're not able to make updates to it because you don't know, how it was created. I want you to be able to build your own website. I want you to know how to create print materials, how to network in your community, and why that's important. I've tried lots of things over my almost 25-year career. And so I know what works, and I love giving you those things. I love just handing it to you and saying, if you do this, you will get clients. Like, this is one powerful thing you can do. This is another powerful thing. Don't waste your time or money on that kind of thing. So there's a business course. The business also is woven through. It's going to come up a lot naturally while we're doing the other things. But you absolutely can build a business with this. But do know that building a business is a huge part of the work, and it is work. And I hope that my love for entrepreneurship is contagious for those of you who find it intimidating or overwhelming, because clients won't just find you. You really need to put as much energy into building the business as you do at learning the skills for the modalities. But you have so much flexibility. You can do this full time the way that I have. You can do it part time. I actually started out part time. Um, I worked part time at what did I do first? I worked as an office manager full time for a software company. And then I just did this in the evenings. That was before I had my son. And then, so this is my son in this picture here. His name's Marshall. He's turning 18 in less than a month. But you can see in this picture, he's probably, based on the house that we're in, I would say he's 4 or 5 in that picture. So I've been doing this for his whole childhood. And it is doable. And I'm here to be a model of that for those of you who are at early stages in the motherhood journey. You can absolutely do it. So when I came out of maternity leave for Marshall, I got a part-time job working 2.5 days a week for the Red Cross, doing first aid coordinating. And then the other half of my week was going into building my business. When he was about that age, I went full time as an entrepreneur, and I have been ever since, even through the pandemic and everything, which was not easy. So this really can be ideal for mothers, people who are changing careers, people who already offer something like aesthetics. We have people who are leaving nursing because it's too much, or it wasn't what they originally fell in love with. And we have people who retire and then want to get into this kind of work. So at any stage of life, this can work. And it is a great way to have work-life balance, because I get to decide at this stage of my business, I get to decide how busy I want to be. In the beginning, it's not that easy. We're going to be really honest and transparent. You're going to be putting more of your time in the early days into building the business than into your clients, right? The client part builds over time. And so I do recommend doing that transition of having part-time work first, and building your business in addition to it, and then letting the part-time work go as your business grows. But I get to decide what days I'm available to book my clients. Do I want to work in the evenings or in the daytime? So at that stage of Marshall's life, I would have worked in the evenings and on weekends a little bit more, because I actually didn't send him to school until he was in grade 1. So we kept him home he went to like a Montessori home daycare for like 2 days a week in his preschool years. But I mostly wanted him with me during his early life. And so I would work when my husband was home, for example. And I even attended births at that. I attended a lot of births actually in his early life. And it always felt overwhelming at that stage. How am I going to do this? But I made it work. And I'm really excited to teach you about how you can do that as well. But like I said, that was one of my main motivations for getting into this. I had a mom who worked in a factory, and she didn't have any control over her schedule or whether she could be there for, bedtime or different events that we had going on. When she had to work, she had to work. And I wanted to have a lot more freedom and flexibility. And this career has absolutely provided me with that. And I'm now at the stage where I'm going to be an empty nester in September. So it's crazy to me, but here we are. And you get to decide like at what stages of your life you're attending births too, right? So there may be stages where you're like, I don't want to attend births right now because I'm breastfeeding, for example. But although we do have doulas who do both, but you have that flexibility to decide at what modalities you're going to offer at different times, and you can just focus on the ones that fit your lifestyle. You can specialize in any of the areas of the modalities that we offer or the seasons of reproductive life that we teach about. You can host workshops or online sessions, so you don't have to do one-on-ones, or you can do one-on-one sessions with clients and also teach like a prenatal education series online or uh, at somebody's yoga studio in your community. Or you could teach workshops about for like infertility and teaching people about natural fertility and how to navigate that using holistic modalities and things like that. You can work in person, you can work virtually. Um, the options are pretty much infinite. And if you follow any of our community members, for example, on Instagram, what you would see if you followed a number of them is that they're all doing it differently, which is amazing. They've all found their kind of niche, even within the niche that we're talking about. And some of them really focus on the birth work, and others don't attend any births and really focus on the reflexology and Reiki sessions, or postpartum support or loss support, or period education, things like that. So we talked about the classes being small. Okay, so one of the really great things about By the Moon training, in my opinion, is that we provide structure, but also flexibility. I know that one of the hardest things about online learning is the discipline and motivation part. So we provide structure, and maybe I can show you what that looks like actually. I'll show you the back end of one of our courses. If I can get logged in. I don't have to log into the By the Moon website very often because I'm not a student. So it's only when I'm teaching. And this is a new computer, so it's forgotten my password. Um, oh my goodness. I think every time I log in, I have to reset my password because I just don't do it very often. But this will only take a second, and then I'll show you so for structure. We provide a schedule that is a suggestion for how we recommend you follow the steps in the course. So it gives you an idea, for example, of like by what date we recommend you have done 10 practice sessions if you're doing the HRP course. So we want you, part of the reflexology certification is that you do 70 practice reflexology sessions on volunteer clients. So that's not 70 people. You can work on the same people many times. And in fact, we want you to have at least 5 clients who receive at least 5 sessions. So we actually put that as a step in there that by a certain date, we want you to do your first session, number one, and we provide lots of support online about the kinds of things we know you're nervous about. And then when we expect you to have 10 done and so forth. So you don't have to follow it that way if we know that life happens. And still waiting for oh, I didn't finish the step for resetting my password. If life happens and you fall behind, you still get to complete the course, right? So we don't kick you out. We're not like, oh, you didn't, because it's a lot of like do it at your own pace. Some people will already be registered and have already started working ahead. So there could be steps in July or August that we have students who are already working on. So if you register early, you have that advantage, but it's not a big deal because when you finish, you finish. We allow up to 2 years. But the schedule doesn't even take a full year if you follow it the way that we have it outlined. Okay, so here's my reset password email. Okay, perfect. Now I can log in. Okay, I'm going to screen share. We'll give you a look at what it's like to be a By the Moon student. So you may already have created a login. Some of you may have already registered and you're watching this info session because you're excited and you want to learn more about it, even though you've already made your decision. But regardless, once you've created a login, you can see I'm logged in now. I've got my little picture here. In this drop-down menu, we're looking for My Programs, and then hopefully okay, so I don't have all of the courses here because again, I'm not actually a student, so I've added myself to a few for the purposes of things like this. So we're going to look at the Holistic Full Spectrum Doula Training Program, not the HRP program. And okay, so here's what it looks like inside. So we've got dates and different steps. So this is an old group. This is from 2023. So on April 18th, it has a step and it says, watch this recorded lecture. This is a conversation between Allison and Michelle about Allison's complicated pregnancy experience with baby Theodore. And then there's Allison's blog link here. So this just tells you that on April 18th, this is the step that we suggest you do. And then the following week, they had a link for a live online seminar, as well as they could upload an assignment and things like that. So for each of the programs, there's dates and steps. This one's outdated. So a lot of the material will be the same, but the live online seminar schedule was much different in 2023 than it is now. And so this is what it looks like. So there will also be check boxes. Unfortunately, you can't check them in advance. I wish you could. I don't have control over that. Um, so we also provide you with a printout list so you can keep a paper list for those of you that are working in advance. But once May 9th comes, you would be able to check off that you've completed it. And that's for your own reference. So I'm not going and looking and seeing like, how far along you are unless we're talking about something. And I need to have a better understanding of where you're at. But the steps are there with check boxes so that you know what you've done. And all of these steps prepare you for your final exams, for example, or for some of the practical work that you're doing. So that's what it looks like on the back end. You get to watch the videos, read things. This one, so back then we didn't have the digital chapters for the manuals, but now we do. So you can read them on your device or you can read the print manual that we send you in the mail. And then for the reflexology course, we even have audio, so you can listen to me read the chapters for you. We haven't made that for all of the manuals yet, but the reflexology course specifically, you can listen, which is helpful for some people who, multitasking, if you want to listen while you're washing dishes, for example. The reflexology course specifically, you will be reading each chapter more than once because the written exam is a little more intensive because of the anatomy and physiology part. Yes, we provide that structure, but also the flexibility. You can work it early, you can work at it late. We do provide extensions, even though we have a deadline for students who are fallen off the wagon completely. And then even 2 years later, we have students reach out to us and say, I'd still really like to finish. Like we have options for that. There are optional online student check-ins. I highly recommend them. They're offered at this time, they're offered once a month. And from any of our groups, people come to these. So you'll often see a lot of the same people come to check-ins at different seasons. And so it's another way to be a part of the community. We talk about all different things. Sometimes we're doing group healing for something specific. Sometimes we're talking about something specific to business. Sometimes we're talking about emotional struggles that are kind of a common theme in the group that's there. All different things, but they're a really great way to stay connected and get excited about your business or get inspired and motivated, and to stay connected to your schoolwork. There's also optional study groups for the reflexology students. So that includes the HRP group. The study groups are specifically for anatomy and physiology. They happen every other week. There's one in the daytime, then one in the evening, then one in the day, and one in the evening. So you'd be with one of our reflexology trainers, and she helps you prepare for your reflexology written exam. They're not mandatory. And we provide exam guides. So for each modality, there is a written exam, and we provide a study guide that gives you practice questions. And so it's really easy to know whether or not you're ready for your written exam. So, for example, the reflexology study guide gives you every question that's on the exam plus more. So as long as it's the quizzes. There's a quiz for every chapter in the manual, and we just copy and paste the questions from the quizzes and make an exam out of them. So as long as you're feeling confident with the multiple choice, short answer, fill in the blanks, that kind of thing, then you know that you're ready for your written exam. So we think students really appreciate the exam guides we provide. There's a real emphasis on practical skills, holistic healing techniques. It used to be pre-2020. So I should give you a little bit of a timeline. This program, the HRP program specifically, came to be September 2018 was the beginning of our first group. And in fact, this picture, Steph, this is in St. Andrews, New Brunswick, that she's working on my foot here. She was in our first group of HRP students that started in 2018. So I was training doulas before that for years with another school, but this was the first time we did this curriculum as a full program. Back then, you had to attend 5 days of in-person training as a mandatory part of the course. So this is Steph doing her in-person training in New Brunswick. But in 2020, we had to cancel our in-person training options because of the pandemic. But the show had to go on. So what we did was we made a whole bunch of video resources to learn the practical skills during the interim of our period of time where we couldn't travel or couldn't be in groups. And actually, they've been enough. So we continue to welcome students to do their whole training online. But we do offer in-person training for people who want that. So highly recommend it. So you can come together with other HRP students and do 5 days of in-person training. Or if you're a doula, then I think it's the first 3 days of the in-person training. But the majority of our students actually don't attend in person. It's very enjoyable. The students who come are always really happy they came. And in fact, we've had some students come more than once, even traveling from far away. We had a student once come from Chicago to Vancouver Island for in-person training. I had a student from up here in Ontario go down to Sedona for in-person training. So we have had students find them very, very valuable and worth traveling for. So I think we have in-person training scheduled either this summer or this autumn in Belleville, Ontario, which is my clinic space here. And we will have other dates and locations added each year as well for people who you don't have to do it this year. So if you're doing your HRP training online this year, you can attend in-person training 3 years from now if that's when it fits your life. That's fine as well. We already talked about business quite a bit, but I just want you to know that we really emphasize the business building part. We want you to be able to get clients so that you can actually do the work. So lots of emphasis on helping you build a business that fits your vision and your lifestyle. We talked about certificates already. This is what our certificates look like. These can be sent to insurance companies to get your professional business insurance. And we help you know who the companies are that insure practitioners of these modalities. Our reflexology course is accredited by the Reflexology Association of Canada. All of these modalities are not regulated in Canada. and a lot of the states. We have students all over the world. Most of our students are in Canada. Then our next biggest population is American, and then we do have some overseas. Um, if you're concerned about one of the modalities in a state where you live, just reach out to me and I'll help you find the information that you need. We also work with organizations who we haven't previously worked with to make sure that they're aware of the by the moon training and how in depth it is. We definitely meet and exceed most industry standards for each of these modalities. So we are RAC accredited, the Reflexology Association of Canada. So should Canadian reflexologists want to become a member of RAC, they can, because RAC is very aware of by the moon training and has already ensured that we meet and or exceed their industry standards. And so they welcome our certified students all the time. But you don't have to be a member of these kinds of organizations in most places. And we really focus on skill building and holistic healing techniques that create real world opportunities. We're almost done here. So I just included two different testimonials. So Jess Levasseur is in Cornwall, Ontario, Canada. I highly recommend you follow Jess on Instagram. I think she's called Nurtured Holistics. Let me just double check. She just shared a story of us today. Yeah, nurtured.holistics on Instagram. So Jess is one of our students who's been very successful. She started out only doing the Holistic Full Spectrum Doula course. But then over time, she did add reflexology and Reiki, and you can do it that way. You can take the courses separately if at first you don't think you wanted to do all of them. So Jess says, since starting my Holistic Full Spectrum Doula program, I decided to jump in head first and start building my business alongside my learning. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. You don't have to wait till you're done school to start your business. And in fact, we encourage starting many things sooner than later. For example, I really push people to build their website early, even if you feel like I'm not ready yet, like put it out there and at least get a basic website started so that Google will start to recognize you by the time you want to be busy. Anyway, we go into those kinds of things more in depth as we go, but you're already, if you're an HRP student, you're going to be working with reflexology clients right away. As soon as you finish Reiki 1, you can start offering Reiki sessions to people. And you can even start charging a fee for some of those services not too long after you earn those skills. So she started building her business while she was still learning. And since starting, my mentors have always been an email away. They are so supportive and always encouraging us to do what feels good and give us a little nudge to go a little further outside that comfort zone. In fact, I think sometimes our little nudges are more like good pushes because I'm a bit of I push people a little more sometimes where I see that it's needed. I've had the opportunity to support many families with visualizing their birth and documenting their birth wishes. Done many one-on-one sessions to educate families on topics like comfort measures, breastfeeding, preparing for postpartum, etc. And most of all, I've had the privilege to attend 2 births this past summer, all while working on my certification. So this is an old testimonial because Jess has she probably attends 2 births every month at this stage of her career, and she had a baby in the last year as well and is still attending births. I remember Steph saying on day 1 that not only will we learn and grow our knowledge, but we will also be growing ourselves. She was not wrong. I am beyond grateful to have found this community. So Steph was her doula trainer. And then this is from Sharon Tower from Litchfield, New Hampshire. I had a new client this afternoon who had never had reflexology before. She is a traveling nurse on her feet all of the time. She has rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's syndrome, fatigue, anxiety, foot and back pain. And I was working on the uterus and ovary points on her feet when she told me that it was tender but felt so good. I told her what the points were and she said, I have a huge fibroid and I bleed every 2 weeks and they want me to have a hysterectomy. I was able to give her some tips and she is going to come back to me every week for the next month to see how reflexology can help her. I definitely feel prepared after this course. It is so much more in depth than I expected and I learned so much more than I would have thought. Thank you. So she's just sharing an experience about having that confirmation. I still have experiences like that where I have clients come and I find something while I'm doing reflexology, for example, and they and I are both like surprised at how confirming these modalities are at telling people about what's going on in their body or like the kinds of changes that happen as a result of these treatments. So if you have any questions, especially if you're watching the recording, schedule a one-on-one with me if you like. We can tea and chat online, or you can send me an email and I'm happy to answer your questions that way. We do have payment plan options, whether you're doing the HFSD or the HRP. You can pay all upfront, or you can pay every month or make a kind of a lump sum payment every 3 months. So you can explore those on the website or ask me about them. And even though the live online seminars start mid-July, as I was mentioning earlier, if you register today, you can get started today. So I'm shipping out packages of manuals every time somebody registers. You get them a few days later, depending on how far away you are. We do have a Canada Post strike coming up. I mean, hopefully not, but it is possibly going to start on May 22nd. So I will be switching from Canada Post to using FedEx or UPS or something like that. So that shouldn't be a problem. In fact, probably starting tomorrow for any registrations that come in, I will start shipping that way because I shipped somebody some manuals today and it said they were scheduled to arrive on May 21st. So to avoid any shipping interruptions, starting today, I'll start shipping those other ways. So you can start reading as soon as you get your materials. As soon as you register, you have instant access to all of the online assignments, recorded lectures, digital chapters. And so, you don't have to wait to get started. The only thing you have to wait for is the live online seminars. And so that is the end of the presentation. I hope that you found it informative and inspiring and exciting. And I hope to see you, at our live online seminar in July, if not before then. I'm going to stop the recording now. There we go.